So you're driving in the car, you try and move into the right lane, and you get somebody honking at you because you didn't see him, right? That's called a blind spot, and we all have them. In my life, a major blind spot was a victim mentality or victim mindset. And what that can look like is blaming other people for your life or your situation. Maybe you blame your career, maybe you blame your coworkers, maybe you blame the person you're in relationship with. I'm sure you have a personal experience. We've all done it. Another thing that can be a sign or signal of a victim mentality is lashing out in anger when somebody's trying to help you. The reason that might be a sign or signal is because it's just validating to you something that you don't want to feel or experience, that you're helpless. The reality is you're actually not helpless. I'll get to that in a second. But when people are telling you you need help, and if you're in the mindset that you are helpless, then it's just reinforcing this thing that you don't want to feel or experience, that you're powerless. These are just a couple quick signs, something that you might not be aware of in your own life. Other signals of a victim mentality is approaching circumstances with negative thinking. Other signals or signs might be that you have a difficult time making adjustments or change in your life. Now, I'm not going to say that everything I'm sharing as a sign or a signal is a guaranteed conclusion that you have a victim mindset. That's not the point. But what I am trying to communicate is that people who find themselves in patterns in life, and we all have patterns, some of them are aligned with God's way of thinking, and He gives us the choice, right, to choose blessing or curse, life or death. And so those patterns that are aligned with His ways of thinking, those are blessing. That's empowering, right? But those patterns that are not aligned, those are the opposite. And they can be leading us into cycles of dysfunction. And these can be generational. These can be things that you started on your own because of what I call open doors in your life. It could be something that you inherited that I call as a non-financial inheritance. When people think of inheritance, they think of financial inheritance, but there's such a thing as a non-financial inheritance where you receive patterns of thinking. I could go into that story and how that's possible at a later point. But when it comes to the victim mindset, a lot of us learn or adopt this way of thinking, whether it's from people that we're surrounded by, whether it's generational bloodline. And we have to really understand those patterns so that we can not just identify them, but also break them, because they keep you from becoming the person that God has designed you to be, which is probably why you're even watching, because you know that God's designed you to be somebody else, somebody more, not in anything but positive way, that there's more to give, and you've probably been one of those people who is successful to other people on the outside, but inside that there's like some disconnect and you can't figure out why. Maybe you have the money, you have the career, you have a family, you have the health, and you look at your life and you go, why are things just not working? What's missing? Why am I missing fulfillment? I don't have clarity on my identity, my direction, my purpose, whatever it might be. Well, there's probably some dysfunctional thinking. And a big part of dysfunctional thinking stems from a victim mindset or victim mentality, signs and signals of which I've talked about already. So for me, a big blind spot was this victim mindset. And if somebody had shared with me, hey, TJ, you have a victim mindset, I probably would have said, no, I don't. Because I've always been the person who's proactive. I've always been the person who's been able to achieve. I would run through a wall to get something done. I've overcome all kinds of different odds. God's been on my side and I've had this positive outlook on life. But the reality is, if I look back, that's true to some degree. But the other piece is that I would also sell myself on things that were not really happening. In other words, I didn't want to accept the fact that I had a lot of brokenness, that things weren't working. And so I would kind of sell myself that things were different than how they actually were. And as a result, I would have to prove something. And I spent a lot of my life proving. I spent a lot of my life proving through success, accomplishment, performance, whether it's literally the trophies and accolades on the wall. I surrounded my room growing up with these trophies and accolades, to the job on Wall Street at one of the most difficult companies to get a job at, and finding a lot of identity, like I did this, even if it was quietly. There's nothing wrong with being proud of accomplishment in a healthy way. But when it becomes your idol, and when you can't live without it, and you don't know who you are without it, that's when things can start to be a sign or signal of something not working, or some way of thinking that is not aligned with God's ways of thinking for you and about you. So with this victim mentality and the blind spots that we can have, one of the most important things, at least for me, one of the most important things that has brought a ton of change is what I call the renewing of the mind. And Romans 12:2 talks about this, but we can actually be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Okay, well, why would I renew my mind if I think everything is fine? And that's the first and most important piece. Is there's four parts to renewing the mind: awareness, acceptance, action, and accountability. And the Lord showed me this process, and this is what I do with all of my clients and all of the coaching relationships that I have. Is we're actively working, not in steps, awareness, acceptance, action, accountability, but in a cycle or a pattern of, sometimes awareness and acceptance happen at the same time. Action and accountability happen at the same time. I've literally had people on the phone where it's like, hey, I need to do this. And I say, great, we're on the phone. Can you do it now? And they actively are doing the thing now. So action and accountability happening right then and now, whether it's initiating the hard conversation, following up on that thing, scheduling whatever they need to do. I'm not talking like, a project. I'm talking like, things that are a matter of the heart and the mind, and directly are results of the way that you think about yourself and your life, and maybe even the direction that you're taking. So, these are really personal matters for a lot of people. Yes, it has professional impact, but for me, the renewal of the mind is not just something that happens through talking. It's something that happens through changing the way that we're living. And that's been my experience in my personal life, but it's been my experience in working with other people too. So the awareness piece, I'll just pause on that because it's so important when it comes to the blind spots and victim thinking. You have to really become aware that it's a possibility. It's a possibility that you might have a blind spot and you might have a victim mindset in an area of your life. Maybe you don't have that mindset in other areas, but maybe when it comes to relationships, you really struggle in having conflict resolution and have run into patterns in your workplace over and over and over again, thinking, well, it's always the work and their issue and these people, but actually you're the common denominator. Maybe there's a blind spot there. Maybe as you become aware and you accept, I might be the common denominator, there might be something that I can change. And as you take action from a renewed place, a renewed thinking, and find accountability in that process of like, hey, I'm actually doing what I say I'm going to do, you build integrity with yourself, and you actually start to see, as you get the feedback loop, oh, people don't necessarily behave the way that I thought they would behave when I address conflict with them. Oh my gosh, like maybe there's a different way that I can be approaching things in my career. Maybe there's a different way that I can be approaching things in my romantic relationships. And these are things I've had to personally go through as I've had the onion layers peeled back, and I've had to address some of these things in my own life. But it's really empowering when you see other people go through it and they come out on the other side more confident, more clear on who they are, on how they are not made to live and how they want to choose to live. And as they raise their standards and start recognizing this is not how things are going to go, not just for me, but for my family, the future generations after me, it's really empowering to see and encouraging to see. But for them, I mean, you are changing families. You're changing the way that people interact with each other, and you are starting to see an activation of people's giftings that they might not ever engage with or even tap into if they didn't have that level of confidence and clarity from changing the way that they're thinking, speaking, and living. So the renewed mind, Romans 12:2, how it talks about you can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If you can be transformed or changed, and you want to see change in your life, why would you not start with the mind? Why would you not start with the mindset that you have? And why would you not explore, okay, if I've got some patterns or things that are showing up that give me some feedback that something is not working, why would you not start, instead of strategy or tactics, with the beliefs and the mindset that you have while you're engaging? And what I've found is that 80% of the change that you're looking for starts with the mindset. Strategy and tactics follow. Those are pretty simple. But there's that old saying, a man says he can and another man says he can't. Who's right? Both, right? It's the idea that as you develop a belief system, an understanding in the mind, your strategy and tactics will come into alignment with those beliefs. And if you are made in the image of a good, all-knowing Father, if you are made in the image, if you truly believe that, then you have the capacity, not by your own strength, but by His, to be able to overcome things. And you are not powerless. In other words, there's a choice in any circumstance. And I've had plenty of circumstances where there has been loss and difficulty and what seems like nothing I can do about change. And I've had to ask the Lord, where is my choice in this situation? And without fail, every single time, sure, there's maybe an action I can take, but the choice that I have starts in the mind. And if you can really begin to tap into this and recognize that you might have blind spots there, it can change your entire life trajectory, whether it's work or relationships, whether it's money, whether it's entrepreneurship, whatever it might be for you. It can change your entire trajectory. And just from my personal experience and testimonies, and I have many testimonies, but there are some practical things that you can do to start improving your mindset. And one of those things is really just recognizing that you might have some things to change. And one of the ways that happened for me is I realized through journaling, actually, which was a practice I started in my 20s, I realized through journaling that I was kind of bumping up against the same patterns. And journaling was powerful because I was able to observe my thinking, my thoughts. I was starting to notice I'm bumping up against the same patterns here, the same thoughts. And these don't feel aligned. And I say feel, but they're not aligned, and they didn't feel aligned with what I was reading in the Bible about the character of God. And I didn't have words to say that. I would just look at my journal and go, well, that doesn't look very healthy. And so as I started to recognize that, I started to think, maybe I need some help to gain some perspective or clarity. Maybe other people who've talked with other people who've gone through something similar, some of the life experiences I was going through, and one of them was, losing a loved one. Another was completely changing my career, starting over. Another was trying to figure out my path in life, my identity and purpose. And I saw different people to help me at different points along the way. And whether it was counseling, whether it was coaching, whether it was different, pastors, whether it was different people who helped me navigate some of this change, the starting point was recognizing I actually might not be doing the best thing for myself by trying to continue doing this by myself. And so for me, I think if you're recognizing, wow, yeah, I may have some blind spots. I'm not really sure how to navigate it. I'm open to what that might look like. If you're stuck in counseling and you find that that's just a pattern of validating where you're talking about your feelings in your past, and there's a place for that, and I've done it for years, but you're finding that you're not able to really break out of the victim mindset, or you're not being challenged, somebody's not really holding the mirror up to you, that's where coaching can be really powerful, because a good coach can help you navigate the past, but also, do so in a way where you're empowered to move into your future, recognizing that this is your choice to change, and you ultimately get to make that choice to change. For me, one of the most important things is just sensitivity to the Holy Spirit, and recognizing that I can't create change that you need. But the Lord is trustworthy, and He knows every hair on your head. He knows the beginning and the end, and He knows exactly how to order your steps. And so if there is that permission to let Him order your steps, and if I can ask some helpful guiding questions that can bring you some clarity, well, then the action and the accountability piece, man, that's just the icing. That's just the topping. That's just the extra to the core change happening. And so if you're listening and you're in that place where you're going, man, I know, I've got this kind of outer thing going on, shell, facade, whatever you might want to call it, where people see success, but inside I feel a little bit different. There's a mess going on. And I've got some blind spots. I don't know how to address them. I don't even know where they are or what they might be. Or maybe I have a clue, but I'm kind of in this place where I need to be challenged because normally I'm the one challenging. Then I would say, consider coaching and consider somebody who can really step up to the plate and say, I'm really not afraid to ask the hard questions. I'm not afraid to hold the mirror up. I'm not afraid to say, this is something that the Lord can lead you through. Let's talk with Him about it and see what He can do. So for me, blind spots, victim mentality, the process of renewing your mind and becoming aware that something needs to change and asking for help, these are some keys that are going to help you navigate the journey to becoming the person that God has made you to be.